Lahr in Germany, a beautiful sunny Sunday morning, and round 9 of 10 of the STW Cup. This is where the championship could all be decided in favour of the man who's led it since the start of the season, Frenchman Lahr. As you can see, the cars on the grid now, the drivers are in the open top cars, have been round the circuit being presented to this enormous crowd. In Saturday's cool and misty conditions after early morning rain, a wet track in qualifying meant that not only were times hard to find, but so were spectators in the grandstand. But now, with the times established and a battle royal on the cards, every seat in the house is packed. As you can see, glorious summer shirt sleeve weather. And in this western extreme edge of Germany, just on the edges of the Rhine Valley, the borders with Alsace and France to their west, this former Canadian airbase playing host for the first time to the 2-litre German Touring Car Cup. As you can see, the grid being cleared now, so just a couple of minutes to go before the cars start up and roll off around the pace lap on this 3.3 kilometre circuit at Lahr. As we'll see when they do start to move off to very long straights, a couple of tight Nadgery corners, but some very quick demanding corners. Michael Bartels here, hand signals, trying to communicate with the team, straighten up the door mirrors to his satisfaction. Only the drivers now left on the grid with the D&V grid girls. There is Frenchman Yvan Muller. That's the view forward from his car. And he, for the first time this weekend, is a champion who may well have to hand over in true Miss World fashion the championship laurels this weekend. Is in the two-wheel drive car again, still on Dunlops, but for comparison reasons they've put Muller on Michelins. The Michelin really rule the roost with the two-wheel drive cars, and Audi trying to establish a ballpark to see whether the performance is down to the car or the tyre or a combination of the two. There is the man who would be king, Lahr. Comes into this series with a 78-point advantage over BMW's Joachim Winkelhock. But a BMW is ahead of him on the grid. It's not Winkelhock, though, it's Johnny Cecotto, who, despite putting his car into the barriers at one stage during the qualifying session, was quite scintillating in yesterday's very mixed conditions. The Venezuelan touring car superstar not only took pole at the end of the session, but had it 2 other times as well as they roll away on this warm-up lap at Lahr. Trouble started early this weekend, though, for Lahr as one of the MiG Audis seems to be having trouble starting at the tail of the field, cars weaving around it. Lahr, along with all the other drivers, took part in 2 one-hour sessions of acclimatisation, the first time they've ever used this Lahr track this week. They started with the 2-hour sessions on Thursday to allow them to get used to the track. Unfortunately, Aiello barrel-rolled his Peugeot into oblivion. 4 or 5 times he went over. He doesn't know, nobody else seems to have counted either. Sadly, the cameras weren't rolling, so we missed that. As we're looking down the grid here, you can see a great season's best 3rd position on the grid for Christian Menzel. Uwe Altzen qualified 5th. He was the fastest in the warm-up this morning. But back to Lahr, he is now racing the car that's been used all season by his teammate Jorg van Ommen. And Van Ommen having to resort to the team's test hack, which was whistled in here across the French border at high speed on Thursday night. The team with an awful lot of work to do. Fortunately, both drivers have kept their noses clean throughout the Friday and Saturday testing sessions, and so everything is as it should be with the cars, though whether Van Ommen's performance will be quite as representative of the Peugeot's ability in the test hack, hastily re-prepared as a race car, remains to be seen. The drivers now eking some warmth into the car. I rather feared it might have been Klaus Niedwitz on that side of the grid. The MiG Audi unable to start the engine. Niedwitz being pulled away, and that's a very sad sight for him. Qualified in 19th place. And there is Alexander Burgstaller. Burgstaller, who broke his leg in the street race at Norris Ring. A big shunt in the very early moments of the main race at the Norris Ring for the Opel driver. Broke his leg quite badly. He had hoped to be fit again to race here at Lahr, but that has clearly not been the case. He took no part in qualifying, had not intended to coming into this weekend. The original hope had been that he'd be fit for Lahr, but he's around and about, so hopefully we will see him then at the season finale at the Nürburgring. Well, this airfield circuit characterised quite clearly by the use of the two main runways, and you will see the cars using those. Here we are on the return leg, and these runways, indeed that's down the end of the main straights. They're doing two warm-up laps here then. These runways really quite enormous in their width, built to take the biggest of transport and bomber aircraft, and more than the size of any normal commercial runway. And when you consider that the car, like this Audi for instance, or any of these cars, probably no more than 2 meters or so wide, 2.5 meters wide today. Some very quick corners. The corner after the start-finish short straight. It's a straight line, but it's only a few hundred meters long, the start line. Klaus Nieswitz now gets away. Well, thankfully for the privateer team from Austria, the MIG Auto team, Nieswitz, the so experienced veteran campaigner of 2 and more decades of German saloon and touring car racing, finally persuades the Audi four-cylinder into life. Johnny Cecotto, look at that. What direction does the track go from the start line? Well, it turns sharp right, and you can see Cecotto in between two sets of big stripes on the road that a rear drive car has left turning in. Lahr Aeo sits second on the grid. Johnny Cecotto is on pole position, and it will be a straightforward battle between the two cars, the rear drive BMW on the extreme right and the front drive Peugeot on the left of the grid, as to see who can get into the first corner first. And I have to say, I would not be surprised to see Cecotto and Menzel both ahead of the Peugeot by the time they're on the main straight. The front-wheel drive cars do not put the power down as well as the rear drivers. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. It's a full start. Jorg van Ommen goes, and so do half the field. But Johnny Cecotto and the pole position BMW driver, Johnny Cecotto, and alongside him, Lahr Aeo, do not move. They could see that the lights had not changed, the same as we could on the inset there. But Jorg van Ommen clearly thought he saw something, or the test hack Peugeot has got a clutch sticking problem, and he had to go rather than hit the car ahead. And the car ahead is his teammate running for the championship. So the red flag's flying to show a full start. Yes, the starting gantry conversation. Oh, what went on then? I didn't even touch the red light button. The red lights weren't even on, and everybody realised it. Stefano Modena there in the TV Spiel film car, the red Alfa Romeo with the hazard warning lights on. No hazard he this weekend though. His season's best qualifying performance, 12th on the grid, the best showing by some margin that we've seen from an Alfa Romeo chip. And on the right-hand side of the picture, Johnny Cecotto with the red nose to the car, the red strip across the windscreen, pulling up onto pole position. Lahr Aeo coming in alongside. Jorg van Ommen was there early, of course. Well, so he should have been. He left early. There is Cecotto. Cecotto gesturing to the starting gantry. What are we doing now? Is there a 1-minute hold? Is there a 5-minute hold? Are we taking a lap off the race? Yes, they are taking a lap off the race. 14 laps will be the distance. The drivers, of course, running marginal on fuel. As ever, they will have been fueled up precisely to do the total number of laps of the race. And if they do another one, they may well have run out. Problems on the grid, though, because we have got musical chairs not having worked successfully there for Kurt Thiem in his Opel. Now pulling in to his position, 7th on the grid behind Uwe Altzen. Doors are opening and a certain amount of confusion reigning. Stop engines is the board that they have been shown, I believe. Yes, the teams are coming back onto the grid. So a slight delay here. It should really be no more than 5 minutes. They have already decided to cut a lap from the race distance, so there should be no need to refuel. No chance of retiring the cars either. There's no need anyway. They've only done one further slow warm-up lap. Even Jorg van Ommen's getaway was hardly the tyre smoking, we're really going for it here getaway. Now the grid mark is being set back out, but I'm sure they will not go on another warm-up lap. If they do, it'll mean yet another lap off this sprint race, and with the championship hanging so delicately in the balance, I'm sure the organisers won't want to do that. Just to reiterate the championship points, for those of you who are not quite aware, into about 45 seconds here at Lahr. 12 laps now the race distance. Well, my theory was wrong, I'm afraid. I suggested they might go straight for a restart rather than slash more laps away from the 15-lap original duration. Dear oh dear, the engine management is not managing at all on Klaus Niedwitz's MiG Audi. The second time he's tried to start it, the second time it's decided it really can't be bothered. Well, they managed eventually to get him started last time. Just to recap, a full start here as Jorg van Ommen decided that he'd sat waiting for some lights to go on, never mind to go off for long enough, and decided to set off for his morning's work a little early. Clearly determined to get back to the pits garage under the awning, switch on the TV to find out how Michael Schumacher is going to fare at Monza. Nobody else moved, well, nobody in the front row moved. Several others behind him decided they would go, and the MiG team, high technology to the fore, having to resort, I'm afraid, to push starting the Audi A4 Quattro. So still just the two-wheel drive Audis in the field. Next year any Audis must be two-wheel drive, of course, but Audi with weight of numbers here, and two Audi teams leading the teams championship. The two bright day-glow yellow cars, the Abt Sportline cars of Christian Abt, whose father runs the team, and Chris Nissen, are leading the championship in terms of points from the Rock Audi team. Well, who are the Rock Audis? They're the silver cars. The French team runs the Works cars in the same way the Italian Bugatti squad runs the Works BMWs here. And they too are fighting for the team's championship. The drivers' championship being battled out essentially now between Lahr Aiello and Jochen Winkelhock. And if Aiello scores 12 points more than Winkelhock at this circuit by the end of the weekend, then he is the champion. Doesn't matter how many they score, as long as he scores 12 more. At the moment he has a 78. The championship pretender, perhaps, contender, leader at least, Lahr Aiello, barrel rolled his 406, shows that, as ever in motorsport, that hackneyed cliche, and anything can happen, and probably will, already has to Aiello. He's racing in Van Ommen's car, Van Ommen in the test hack. Klaus Niedwitz now for the second, or indeed for the third time of asking. It's the third time he's tried to get the car to start. Once in the pit lane successfully with all the equipment and the team around to help. Twice on the grid with no luck whatsoever when he was stranded on his own. He's rejoined the back of the field though, and that's a shame. Qualified 19th, he will now start right at the back, even behind Feil and Bromberger's Alfa Romeos. So the team stream through. Let's just run down the grid again to recap. It's a while since we saw the grid graphics. On pole position, and a stunning performance by Johnny Cecotto, the Venezuelan in the Bugatti BMW. Alongside him on the front row of the technology is going on in the Opel camp. Sixth is Ivan Muller in his two-wheel drive Audi, running, I remind you, on Michelin tyres, unlike the others who are on Dunlops. In comparison, for instance, his teammate Emanuele Pirro, the reigning champion, is 2 rows further back than Muller, and he is on the standard Dunlop tyre. Whether the tyre, or the driver, or the conditions, or all three made the difference, we have yet to say, and hopefully Audi's telemetry will tell them. The final car rolls onto the grid, and it is the Alpha of Klaus Niedwitz. Dirk Muller right at the back as well. He did not take part in qualifying. This time the red lights are on, and we wait now, hopefully, for the greens. They go green. The two BMWs make a good start. Cecotto gets away well. Menzel gets away well. Yes, they've both beaten the Peugeots onto the first straight, and then it's a horde of Opels with Ivan Muller's Audi in amongst them. So Uwe Alsen is in third place. Kurt Team challenging Ivan Muller for third place. For fifth place, Kurt team goes into sixth. Ivan Muller chops in behind in seventh. Around the outside goes Jochen Winkelhock, started ninth. Now running alongside the seventh place car, down into eighth. He's got an Opel and an Audi inside him. This is tough times for Jochen Winkelhock. Christian Danner lasted 34 laps in the Vancouver kart race, has lasted 2 corners here at Lahr, so his back-to-back race weekends not going well. The 2 BMWs, first and second. Jockel is down there in 9th or 10th place, and everybody else streaming through the circuit. So Aiello third, Van Ommen fourth, Alsen there in the Paulaner Opel in 5th place, but a great getaway from the 2 rear driver BMWs. Always a factor at the start of the race is that as the weight transfer goes to the back, it sits over the driven wheels of the BMWs and they launch much better off the line, and with that very short drag down to the first corner, no surprise to see them ahead. Emanuele Pirro, I think it is, gets spun round. It is Emanuele Pirro, the reigning champion. Well, they went 4 or 5 abreast there into the corner. That's a feature of these wild, wide aircraft straight corners. And Emanuele Pirro, the meat in somebody's sandwich. Let's have a look. Oh my goodness me, Leopold von Bayern. Well, that's what happened to Christian Danner. Von Bayern had outbraked himself by 60 or 70 yards there and came back on. And the other of the Paulaner Opels, Manuel Reuter, and Roland Asch there making contact with the already spun Emanuele Pirro. So Pirro will no doubt bang it into first gear, and with the red mist ablaze continue. Christian Menzel fights off Laurent Aiello. I remind you that Jochen Winkelhock would like to win, but his 2 teammates denying Aiello points at the moment is very good news for Winkelhock. Aiello would pick up 30 points for a win here, and if Winkelhock is far down the order, that would be enough to win the championship. Oh dear, Danny Files squeezed between, I think, Engstler's Coolfire Opel, dear me, Alfa Romeo, and the tyres, and I'm afraid the tyres won there. Danny File out of the race very early, and substantial front-end damage to that car. It will not be taken back to the pits before the pits are closed at the end of this race, and he will have very, very minimal preparation time before race 2. I'm afraid that Danny File may well be out of this. This time, Laurent Aiello goes down inside Christian Menzel. Menzel talking last weekend at Salzburg about the fact that a young driver like him, even running up with the front men as it is here, he said, they take me all for granted that they can all go past and that I won't put up any fight. And he says sometimes that puts you in positions you don't want to be in. Roland Asch gets spun round. Is that Reuter again? It is. Poldi goes through, Leopold von Bayern and Marco Bromberger in the second of the file Team Blue Alfa Romeos. So Johnny Cicotto leads, Laurent Aiello on the move. Peugeot was saying before the weekend started, after Thursday's acclimatisation, they thought this would be a BMW circuit. Well, I remain to be convinced of that, and I think the BMW Bugatti team and Isert team remain to be convinced of that as well. Still, it is fair to say BMW 1 and 3, Peugeot 2 and 4 at the moment. But in these early couple of laps, we have seen some very, very substantial reduction in numbers of cars, if not still running, at least still looking the way they did when they left the pits. Out they come then, onto this long, fast main straight. Look how long it takes them just to cross the straight. All right, they're not going straight across, but still, they use the full length of the straight to cross from one side to the other. Through this second gear, first corner, quite tricky, quite technical, those couple there. Manuel Reuter bringing what remains of his Vectra back to the pits. Well, we can see the order there. The gap, 0.4 of a second to Aiello. There's not even room for another car between them. Paulaner Schmidt Motorsport team off to rescue Reuter, should he appear at the end of the pit lane. Ivan Muller in 6th place there. And Jochen Winkelhock with a lot of work to do still. Aiello very close indeed to Cicotto. And this top 5, top 6, top 7, top 8 with Kurt team there and Jochen Winkelhock in tow. All 8 cars, barely a car's length between them. And Winkelhock with the quickest lap, well, he's in the slipstream, and that counts on these two long, fast straights. Across the start-finish line they come. Flat out, very nearly flat out, fifth gear corner here, exiting at over 180 kilometers an hour. And that exact point is where Winkelhock decided that it was good without a lift in mixed conditions on slick tyres on the damp track in qualifying, and some 20 or 30 yards into the grass, never mind along the grass, he found out that in fact it wasn't quite flat. Picks up a place from Kurt Team though, determined driving from Winkelhock, and he has a much reduced race distance. I remind you, they started with only 12 laps instead of 15 to do after that full start. They now have, I think, 8 laps still to go. Cecotto and Aiello very, very closely matched, and Cecotto understands the way that team touring car tactics work. It's benefited him in the past. He has worked for others in the past in his BMW, long and distinguished BMW career, and he will be doing his level best, not only to win this race for himself, but by doing so to hold off Laurent Aiello and to try and reduce the points count that Aiello can pile up over Cecotto's own teammate, who is now chasing down Yvan Muller. Cecotto's teammate Winkelhock will need to pull himself up the order in this race, because at the moment he is in distinct danger of not even taking this fight to round 2 of the championship, round 2 of the race here today. Aiello really close now. A lot of pressure being applied to Johnny Cecotto, but Cecotto is more than able to deal with that, I'm sure. Cecotto, Aiello, Menzel, and then in 4th place, Alsen in the Opel. Beg your pardon, Van Ommen, of course, in the Peugeot. Alsen in the Opel behind him, Yvan Muller. Then Winkelhock, Kurt Team in his Opel, Marco Werner in the Honda. And Werner started in 8th place. Not the greatest of starts from him. Aiello at the moment on for 24 points, Winkelhock for 14. If they finish this way, doesn't matter who's in between them. Winkelhock in 7th would score 14, Aiello would score 24, a 10-point difference. And I remind you, he only needs to take away 12 more than Winkelhock this whole weekend to become the champion. So Winkelhock balancing on the brink right now. Marco Bromberger running out of room, but still running.
Back live to the STW Cup with Michelin, successful in motorsport and on the road with Pilot High Performance Tire.
Johnny Cecotto leads from Laurent Aiello. Aiello and now Uwe Alsen have both put up fastest laps in the last couple of laps. Yvan Muller with behind him Jörg Van Ommen. Van Ommen made a mistake 2 laps ago, slipped back down the order. Muller chasing Uwe Alsen's Opel ahead of him. Yvan in 5th place. 6th is Jörg Van Ommen, and 7th bottled up behind him, the championship contender Jochen Winkelhock. And at the moment, Winkelhock giving away 10 points in this race to the championship leader Laurent Aiello. Aiello's had a substantial look inside the BMW of Johnny Cecotto for the lead. If he takes the lead and Winkelhock can't improve, that's it. The championship will be sealed in Aiello's favour. But Cecotto holding on. Christian Menzel holding on from Uwe Alsen as well. Twice now at the end of the main front straight. Alsen has dived inside the BMW, and twice the rear drive car has been able to hold on and power out of the corner better. Yvan Muller right with them now, right on the tail of Uwe Alsen. And cynics who say that team orders in teams like this, in championship moments, ruin the sport, have been proved wrong with Christian Menzel. No battle in the championship for him, no axe to grind in 3rd place. It would have been so easy for BMW to say to the youngster, if you know what's good for you, son, and you want to drive for us next year, perhaps a decent deal, just take the Frenchman off at the first corner. It would have been very, very straightforward, and it would have meant that the race would almost certainly go to the final round with Winkelhock still in contention, as Philip Pater in the 4-drive Audi and the 2-wheel drive Alfa of Stefano Modena come to blows. But BMW want to see this settled fairly, and so there was no unguided missile tactics. Ivan Muller now chasing the BMW of Menzel as Uwe Altzen took his position superbly there. Jochen Winkelhock still bottled up behind Jorg van Ommen. You can bet your life that Jorg van Ommen will be defending his place as desperately as possible. Cecotto leads then. Philip Pater in the pits, and work will continue during this race now to re-prepare the car for the main race later on this afternoon. 1 and 2 have gone through. 3 Altzen, 4 Menzel, 5 Muller, 6 Van Ommen, 7 still Winkelhock. Remind you that he at the moment is 10 points shy on current standings of the score that the second place man Laurent Aeo will pick up from this race. Aiello will pick up 24 points for second, Winkelhock 14 for 7th. And Aiello only needs 12 more than Winkelhock from this weekend, from both races, to decide the championship. If they finish this way, though, and Aiello doesn't finish the main race, of course, then 2 points he would need from the Nürburgring to become champion at the final race of the season. So it's all to play for. Jochen Winkelhock started 9th, really a disastrous time in the damp qualifying session Saturday afternoon. Severely hobbled his championship chances, but Jockel, Smoking Joe, not for any tyre abuse, you understand, but the fact that it's only when he's driving that he's ever seen without a fag on, and even that is not necessarily taken as read. He doesn't often have an in-car camera. If Dick Trickle in NASCARs can take a fag break in the car during yellow flags, then I'm sure Jockel has thought about it more than once. Tyre smoke ahead of Jorg van Ommen as we look back to him. Good view there from Ivan Muller's bumper cam. First time we've seen that. And Jochen Winkelhock still unable to make much impression here. And Winkelhock will be his customary agitated, excitable self when he gets out of the car, no matter what the result. But Aiello here, well, big question for him. Should he risk it all and go for victory? After all, he has a big points margin and a lot of chances still. Or will he push Cecotto along, and will he sit here? There are still 3 more races. Even if this one finishes the way it does, there are a potential 150 points on offer, and he only needs to pick up 2 more of those, and he would be the champion. So for Aiello, sitting pretty in 2nd place, I'm sure for the Frenchman, the chance to win this the way it should be won, from the front, by winning this race and sealing the title here now in the sprint, would be very, very tempting indeed. But Johnny Cecotto holds him off to the flag, and the important position now is not of Cecotto or of Aiello. The director seems to be slightly missing the point here, but of there where Jockel finished, Jochen Winkelhock, there was a contact with somebody for Christian Menzel, the front right-hand fender rubbing on his tyre, a last corner contretemps with somebody, quite possibly with Ivan Muller, who seems to be ahead of him at the moment, was at the line. Winkelhock then in 7th place, Aiello in 2nd. To confirm that, 14 points for Winkelhock, 24 for Aiello. Aiello now needs 2 points from the afternoon to be the STW champion for 1997. 2 points more than Winkelhock, not a tough order. The cars running round behind the pace car. Ivan Muller, hand out the window to draft in a bit of cooling air. And a good race from him. And I wonder what Audi will take away here. Michael Bartels, as ever, looking a little concerned. And not a little hot and sweaty as well in these very warm conditions at Lahr. The drivers have been spared that during the testing and qualifying session. All right, they've had to contend with wet tracks, but at least it's been workably cool inside the cars. The pace car bringing everybody round to the Parc Ferme area. Oh dear, Leopold von Bayern's car will need a bit of tank tape and straightening out. Laurent Ayo then, 604 points. Jochen Winkelhock, 516. 150 points on offer. Total still left in the season.